call the March 7th Agricultural Commission meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. Welcome, everybody. Our meeting tonight, we're going to talk about Community Preservation Act. We started to investigate this when we started looking into when 61A properties and things came up and we were looking for funding sources. We have to look somewhere, and we looked into the land trusts, and CPA keeps coming up, and we also had talked with our representatives, Kimberly Ferguson and Ann Goby, and they asked if we were a CPA community, and we were not. So I think the purpose of this meeting is just to introduce it and get some input on where the other boards feel and see if it's something that we should pursue further. We had a meeting, our last regularly scheduled meeting. We had a gentleman from Westminster, Isaiah Grigos, that kind of introduced us to what Westminster had done. And maybe you can just summarize a little bit.
My name's Bob Soderberg. I'm on the committee here. We had Isaiah Grigos. He's from Westminster, originally a Princeton resident. He's on planning board, open space committee. They're a town about the same size as us, and they were losing a lot of farmland and farms. So they had the same concerns that we did. They tried putting this through, I think 3 years ago. It failed by 2 or 3%. So Isaiah is a friend of my son's, so I invited him to our last meeting to kind of give us an overview of CPA, since we were kind of new to this, and we were looking for a way to find funding to save agricultural and farmland open space. So we had him in. It was a 2-hour meeting, probably, just an overview session, but it caught our attention, and it sounded like a possibility for funds to not only preserve open space, but historical and low-income housing. So that's kind of where we are. And I don't have a presentation. We're just here to kind of to get a general feel for, if we should move forward with this, I guess. So, with that, I'll turn it back to Glenn.
Trying to stay outside the blast radius?
Glenn, don't you think we ought to turn our light switch on over there to light up Randy?
Mr. Jordan. Would you like to talk a little bit about it?
Oh, no, I'm okay. I mean, I can talk. So thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. The Ag Commission has actively tried to support other endeavors of 61A properties being purchased over the years in the town of Rutland. And I think the majority of the world has been excited about doing it. And the one challenge that we have had as a whole going forward is the lack of funds or figuring out where we can come up with money to do it. So this CPA had been presented, or we had heard about it as a group, to possibly do it. And 20 years ago, we tried to do it here in the town of Rutland, and we're unsuccessful for whatever reasons going forward. A lot of people think of this as added to your tax base going in, and everybody's concerned about that. Westminster, a friend of ours, came down and gave us a talk here a few weeks ago and talked how hard they had pushed forward with this going forward in Westminster, and they were very close, but they were unsuccessful. think they had a lot of good ideas, and there's a lot of variables that we, the town, can choose to do it. I think we, as the Rutland Ag Commission, are willing to lead the charge to really focus on trying to preserve what open space that we have here in the town of Rutland. And in turn, that's not its only charge. The money that is captured from CPA is depends on what we decide as a community to do, anywhere from 0.5% up to 3%, from what I understand. The advantage of going at the full 3% is it has the better chance of getting up to 100% matching funds from the state. For lack of better terms, that's free money coming from the state to do it. Also being involved with CPA, from what I understand, is the ability to have more opportunities to get grants in other avenues, not necessarily the money that we're talking about, but in other opportunities to do it. From what I understand, when you go to fill out grant applications for different things, there are check boxes that you have to check off, and if you're a part of CPA, you get an additional check to give you greater points to physically get a grant going forward. I believe 20 years ago when this was started, majority of the people tried to do the 3%, and they were almost guaranteed 100% of matching funds from the state going forward. Naturally, there are more communities involved. I believe there's 192 or 96 people involved in this program, so obviously it works for some of these communities doing it. Some of the funds that have come in are 10% has to go toward historical buildings, 10% has to go toward low-income homes, and 10% have to go to open space of some sort. Not necessarily always 61A, but open space as a whole going forward.
Or recreation.
Or recreation, which is still open space. So in turn, that other 70% can be lumped into money going forward with there. In the last couple of weeks that we've talked about it here amongst ourselves and a few people in town that we've talked about it, is nothing but positive come out of it. The gray area that we have to decide as a group of people is where do we want to make this the greatest opportunity for the town of Rutland, if that's what we choose to do, to make it go forward. I don't think we're in this for the long run, but we'd like to do it in a short period of time. Westminster took 2 years to do it. They did it via a citizen's petition and a new organization to do it, and they only had a town vote to do it. We as an Ag Commission feel that there are different avenues to go forward doing this, to the best of my knowledge. What we briefly spoke about is we'd like to bring it to the town meeting floor where we get a positive vote there, and then we have to also bring it to a paper ballot for an election to do that. Some of the advantages we feel as a group to do it through a town meeting is we have the opportunity to have education similar to what we've done in the past with some of the meetings that are up here upstairs, and educate the people. And then if there are questions at the town meeting that we hope to do in May, we can answer them on the floor, and the people have an opportunity to change it or make an amendment to it there on the floor if they're all in favor of it, but we don't want to do 3%, we'd rather do 2.5%, and the majority chooses to do that, then they can make that change there. And then the ballot, we could write the ballot, I assume, to the way to match whatever the vote is at the town meeting to make it all go forward there. So I think we have to do a thing. There are regulations at Lear, and there are people from the CPA on a state committee that used to come out and help do meetings like this and answer all the questions that we can do. They're not in a position to do that anymore because there's only 2 people that manage 192 or 96 communities, whatever it is, they're going forward. But they're willing to answer any question that we can't handle here as a body. So I think the general intention of this particular meeting in my eyes was, A, are we all in favor and we think it's a great idea? I believe the Ag Commission is willing to lead the charge going forward. We have been successful in years past of getting behind something, and we can move mountains to do it. I think the biggest thing is we got to educate people. And one of the first reactions that we had from somebody in a neighboring town, it wasn't this town, is why in the world do we want to pay more taxes, right? And that's what everybody's worried about. So I think we have to have that sweet spot that makes it happy for people financially of what your average do. We've done a spreadsheet that we have the ability to educate you a little bit on if we do it. There are different parameters, and there's some things that we have learned since the last meeting of you can have an exemption. And I believe the exemption can either go from 0 up to $100,000. We thought,
0 or 100.
It's 0 or 100.
so we originally thought it had the ability to do more. So I guess we have two choices that I was just educated, but that's what we're here for, is to get educated all on this going forward today. So I think we've got to keep it simple. If we choose to do this, I think we have to keep this simple and stick together on whatever we try to do to inform people to go forward and answer all the questions that we can, that our glass is half full of milk, and forward and going that way there. So I think the best thing to do to start is, I think we should go around the room and just introduce everybody so we can put a name and a face together with everybody. So as you probably already know, the Ag Commission, will start over here with Dave.
Dave Dolan, Ware Road.
Bob Soderberg on Ridge Road.
Glenn Coppola, Main Street.
Randy Jordan, Muskapog.
Natalie Borison, Brunel Drive.
Dick Williams, Overlook.
Peter Crane, Nate's Way.
So can you tell me if you're with a committee, just so we can put 2 and 2 together, please? Peter, you don't have to, all right? Just go on. But everybody else is down on 1 or 2.
Conservation Commission, Earthworks Board, Cable Advisory Committee, and Ad hoc Bylaw Committee, though that last one's ending in a couple months, thank God.
Jen Ledger, Select Board, Historical Commission.
Tom Rochelle, Finance Committee.
Glenda Williamson, Conservation.
Brian Bjorkland, Open Space.
George Farrington, Open Space.
Mike Sullivan, RDIC.
Michelle Vanry, RDIC.
Rachel Dolan, resident.
Sabrina Heinelema, Economic Development.
Ted Purcell, Finance Committee.
Leah Waitman, Select Board, Open Space.
Chris Borison, CAPC.
So I thank everybody for coming. This is better than I anticipated. I think it's great to go there. So can probably the first thing to do is, do we all believe, or the majority of the people believe here, do we understand what CPA is, or the brief description I've given? And B, are we all in favor that it's a good thing, or do we need to convince some of you that it's a good thing for the town, I guess is the first question. Yes, Jen?
Can we just go over again the formula, if you will, of what exactly, how we get the funds, how we contribute as residents or a town? What's on us? How is that determined? And then again, I know it's matched by the state at some point, but what is it that we are having a percentage of?
Okay, so it is between a 1% and 3% charge, or a surcharge on the total that you pay in property taxes. So if you pay $10,000 in taxes, that's way too high. It would be 3% of that.
I wish.
It would be 3% of that. So it is not 3% of your property assessment, it's of what you pay. And it goes into a fund that would be controlled by.
So why don't you answer her question? So, but you should probably tell you how you get the money first, because you didn't necessarily tell that.
So is it already, like, is the property tax that I pay,
Yes.
is the percentage taken out of what I already pay, or is it on top of?
It is on top of.
So why don't we pause for a minute and we'll let Bob give the formula of what it would be. Just give an example of the average home.
Well, the average home, according to information that was given at our last meeting, property value is $427,267. So if you look at a CPA surcharge of 1%, assuming the $100,000 exemption, that homeowner would pay $48.53 a year. A little over, under.
So tell what 2% is, tell what 3% is.
So 1.5% would be $72.80. 2%, it goes up, as you can see, it just keeps going up. I don't have my computer, we can't put this up there.
I think, I have it, it's $97 6 cents for 2%.
Yeah,
And if you went to the full 3%,
it's $140.
$145.59.
Now, I think, personally, my own opinion is, I think if we want this to happen, it has to be feasible to.
So just to answer her question, let's stay on topic for a moment, right? So Natalie will fill in the blanks better than I can. So if you take the $97 that he just said on your average home, if your current,
What percentage, Randy? But that was 2%.
so at 2%, right? And that's with $100,000 exemption, so if your home is valued on the average of $427, it's only valued, 2% is added onto your tax bill of the $327, whatever that math is, right? So if you currently pay a $6,000 annual tax bill, your tax bill will rise to $6,097.
So the formula is the assessed value minus the exemption. So there's your base number. Multiply that by the tax rate, divide by 1,000, times the surcharge in percentage. So right now, I believe our tax rate was $14.83 a thousand. So that's where all these numbers came from.
And that's another thing we have to determine is what exemption we would choose, if any.
So,
It would either be 0 or 100,000.
And there are exemptions for seniors and low income that can be applied on a yearly basis if they fill out an application or a waiver.
So it's not across the board, we can,
No.
is it per property or?
Every,
Yes, it's.
just
per-
property,
Land and
yes.
property.
Okay, so each resident could choose.
It'll be resident and commercial property.
some of our philosophy in the past was, I think we had to decide on a group of where we think people can afford to do it, right? Those that are in a position to help with this and not considered part of the low income or whatever that criteria that we can set in there is. Yes, sir?
Randy, I just have a quick question. It's your point 97, but usually the property taxes are paid quarterly. So that would be 97, paid divided by 4, you'd pay it each quarter?
Yes. Yes.
So, to your point, if it's 1% on a 200,000, average size home, $47, you're talking, a little over what, $10, $11 a quarter or something like that.
Right. Westminster did it per quarter, and some of the people were challenged with that. So part of our philosophy is we'd like to talk on an annual basis, so people don't get it mixed up. We want to minimize the confusion of where we're going with this. So that was part of our philosophy. So I don't necessarily know this, but I'm going to assume that when we pay our taxes to the town of Rutland, that money goes in there, in the town of Rutland, and the new Becky does whatever with that money, and that money goes into a separate fund, okay? And if we choose to go with a 3%, then we have the opportunity to receive matching funds from the state that has the ability to be up to 100% of money. It may not be 100%, it may be 80%, but if you're at 2%, you'll be at, Natalie, tell me what that number there. That number is much smaller, right? It's 25%.
The state fund
Right, of matching.
contribution.
So we have,
Oh, go ahead.
so we have the ability to double down our money, or 3/4 of our money, for sure, coming in. So we did some rough numbers the other day when we had our preliminary visit about this, is if we did 3%, if we did 3%, we did 3% on the number of parcels that we had in the town of Rutland, and paying that smaller number, it was I believe the number that we originally did was $147 on an average home in Rutland, we would net about $500,000, and that's a really rough number. So potentially our first year, we could have $500,000 coming in, roughly,
From the town.
yes, from the town residents. Here.
Without the match.
That's no match, and that's no exemptions of people that are low income, right? So that number may change, that may turn into 400,000, it probably won't be any larger, you know what I'm saying? In turn, and then we have the opportunity to you know, get somewhere between 75 and 100% from the town, so we're turning into $800,000, relatively fairly simple to do it, right? And part of our philosophy is, once we determined the numbers that we wanted to do, is we wanted to show some things that other neighboring communities that we can relate to have used that money for. And also give examples in the past, what Rutland could have done to save some money, not save money, but bought the property over here, right? Or the Rutland Historical roof that was just put on that cost us a lot of money to do it as town residents. We could have put a new roof on that. The old fire station that's being renovated right now, we could possibly help with some things over there through historical funding, right? We could do the Davis property down here that a number of years ago that we really wanted to buy because it was on Main Street, and an opportunity to do that we could have and should have found the money, but yet if the money was sitting there, we could do it, right? If we don't spend the money in the course of a year, we have the opportunity to roll it over and continue to make it grow, and then we can, and the money isn't spent by the selectmen or the committee, because I believe the CPA has to have a committee to help decipher some of this going forward and doing some of that. And then it is, from my understanding, it is a vote of a town meeting to choose to spend the money, right, to go forward. So even if you don't believe in this program and you say, you know, people are gonna spend the money in a different direction, it's all of us that have a decision of, geez, we'd like to save Davis's property because, hey, it's gonna cost us $300,000 to save that property, we have an opportunity to do it, right? So there's multiple levels to get it done, and we'd have to call an emergency meeting to do an open space, and most of the time when you're doing the roof on the historical or whatever, you could do it. Slate roof was put on at the library in Hubbardston. Nobody does slate roofs anymore because they can't afford to, right? But Hubbardston afforded it through some of that. Playgrounds are done every day of the week with CPA money that we all want and need for our young kids to do what we're doing. Natalie, go back and talk what you were talking on, please. I'm sorry. I'm trying to help.
I don't even remember what I was talking about.
Okay. So she asked, do we answer your full question about?
I have more for you. So with the matching, as an example, Hubbardston they did a 1.5% CPA. Their state contribution for 2024 was 17 grand. Whereas if you get Templeton, they're at 3%, their state match was 177, almost 178,000.
What percentages did those match? Do those map to?
I do not have, that's what I just asked, but I can figure that out for future. But I know that 3% allows you to get up to an 100% match. It's probably realistically closer to somewhere in the 70 to 80% range, on average right now. But if you go less than 3%, you're looking at a maximum of like a 29% match.
That has the ability to change.
Yes.
Right, that's fluctuating.
Will change every year. It's based upon what happens in the trust fund for the state and how they allocate funds each year. So it's every year is a different formula.
And one thing I wanted to point out is, I just read this before I came up here, but there's actually 3 rounds of funding. The first round, let's say, everybody gets the same percentage. So if the CPA fund, if their reimbursement rate is 30%, everybody gets 30%. If it's 25, they get 25. If you're under 3%, you do not go into the second and third round of funding. So there's advantages to do that, but then again, I guess the question is, how much money is gonna be left after, the first round?
Also, the second and third rounds are weighted, so they are, so if you're not at 3%, you don't move on at all to the second and third rounds. The second and third rounds are weighted to give preference to smaller and less affluent communities. And that's a measure set by the state. They have a formula that they assign you, like a decile index number and a percent. And so depending on the community size, we are on the smaller / less affluent side of things, so we would look at a larger return in subsequent rounds of fund dispersal, in those rounds 2 and 3. But
3%?
yeah, the only way you can get into rounds 2 and 3 is if you do 3%. So that's,
Well, I'm not seeing a lot of benefit unless we do the 3%.
You're a smart woman. That's exactly what we think, so. But there's the challenge with 3%, it's more money out of your pockets as a town person, right? So I'm willing to bet philosophy is the town of Westminster, which is a comparable town to Rutland and relatively close that you can touch and feel, and that gentleman has helped us, guide us, right? Is they did 1%, correct?
Westminster?
Yes.
They did 3.
They did 3%. Somebody did 1% recently, and they see, Westminster did 3%, but they lost 48 to 51%, and they were close. But they did it in a ballot, but citizens petition, so it's a little bit more challenging. And they didn't have the support of all the committees, and that's part of our reason here is we'd like to get the support of all the committees unanimously, and we'd rattle that off at our public sessions and do that. I think we'd have a little bit more weight. We had 2 questions. There was a question behind you first, Mrs. Nolan.
Well, I think you started to point to this, but you are not locked in. So let's say we pass it at 3 and we decide it wasn't worth it, and we want to, as a town, go down to 2%, take less out of the citizens' pocket. Can you change it at each year if you wanted to?
Yes, town meeting.
5 years.
What did Peter say?
You can change it every year at town meeting.
We were
You can only repeal after 5 years. You can't get rid of it. You can't say, we're not gonna do CPA, forget it, for 5 years. Once you enact it, it can stay enacted, it can be changed at any town meeting. The percentage, up to 3%.
He's done an awful lot of homework on this. He's our legal counsel on this.
You guys are screwed.
I think going for the 3% would be the most beneficial. However, I really believe if you're gonna get it past the first 100,000 exemption will be critical to getting the 3% passed.
So for an example, I know we already stated these numbers, but the typical house with 3% will be charged roughly $150 a year.
With 100,
With a $100,000 exempt.
That would be a house that's assessed at like $450,000.
That would be a dinner out. That would be going out to dinner for an evening.
and I think that's part of our philosophy is try to keep it affordable.
Yes,
So
and I
people
think
aren't
that's gonna
questioning
be
it.
critical in people understanding when it comes to their budget and that the way you explained that is going to be very important to convey to the citizens who are voting. When you compare it to a dinner out once a year, is that worth saving 50 acres in town after a couple of years and we've been able to save? Templeton did this how many years ago, or decades? And how much have they been able to purchase in their town?
Yeah, there's,
We're always a day late and a dollar short, and we miss every single opportunity.
remember, positive here, we're positive at this.
But this right here
Yeah.
is within a year, as you said, within 2 years, you could have, possibly $1 million.
So Templeton adopted the CPA in 2009 at 3%. Since then, just their state match is 2.15 million.
Imagine what we can buy and do.
We could have saved a lot of farms with that if we had done this whack then.
But I think it is also important to just, for transparency, as the home valuations do, or as the property valuations do go up, it is going to go up. With 3%, if you have $1 million valuation on your house, you're looking at around $400 a
But
year.
as you said, the percentage can be looked at
Yes.
annually
Yep.
and adjusted.
I just don't want, I don't want somebody to come in and be like, oh, you said it was $150,000, or you said it was $150 a year. It's not that's what we're going on the average. And that's based off of a $450,000 property evaluation.
But that, if you use the $100,000 exemption.
Yes.
It's gonna bring it down to 327,000 based on. And that is a very important point to make sure the voting population understands that.
Is that something that we can change? If we choose to go with an exemption, down the road, could we say we wanna remove the exemption and?
Yes. We can remove the exemption, but we can't change it.
The
It's,
same process that you went through to enact, whether it's town meeting and or ballot.
Oh, okay.
This is one of the things, there are three ways to do this. There's, the usual way is town meeting followed by an election. There's a town meeting only path, but that changes where the money has to come from, and that gets complicated quickly. You can never go less than 1% residential, and whatever, the total has to be over 3%, but the rest of it, of whatever you want, has to come from a surcharge on other town income. That's a whole complicated thing I haven't looked into, I just know that it's there. The third way is to do a citizen petition to get it on the ballot, so it can be election only, but you need 5% of resident voters, which is roughly 10 times the number of signatures that you need to get on, to be put on the ballot for an elected office, roughly. So, there are complications either way. The most frequent path is town meeting followed eventually by an election, because they can't be right next to each other in time.
It has to be a 60-day wait period from what we understood. And then the way the presidential election falls this year, it will be 60 days after the May 11th
More than, yeah.
town meeting. And we think we'd have the opportunity to get more people potentially to come out for the presidential election this year to do it. I think there's statistics that will show that it's more likely to pass on a presidential than that. Mr. Sullivan, do you have a question? State your name and address, please.
Mike Sullivan, property.
I'm sorry.
Procedurally, what happens if you go to a town meeting and it gets defeated? Can you then still have the ballot?
So
I don't know the
you can, so if it goes to town meeting and it's defeated at town meeting, you can either wait and not do anything. I think that's similar to what happened 20+ years ago. Or there can be a citizen's petition to get it on the ballot for a ballot question. I think that requires 5% of registered voter signature.
5%, yes.
Of registered voters, not of any other. I think that number, Peter, is around 700 signatures.
I redid the math, that's double, it's closer to 400. It's
Okay.
400 registered voters.
So it would take 400, signatures of 400 registered voters to petition to get a ballot question for CPA on the ballot in, if we were looking at a November ballot, election. It has to be submitted 67 days before, because it has to, all the signatures have to be certified and everything. So that's the other avenue. I think some communities, I think Templeton or Westminster did it that way straight away. They didn't do the legislative body option. They didn't take it to town meeting. They just did the citizens petition to get it on a ballot. I think that AgCom is leaning towards the legislative body to have more town input and control of the legislative body, I think is the hope.
One thing to follow up on that, Leah, is, I remember Isaiah told us that a year or two after they put this at, the ballot, people that were against it are now for it, because they were not educated enough, I guess, or something.
I think it's also worth noting that no town in Massachusetts has repealed it once it's been put into place.
Did that answer your question? Sorry.
Well, kind of, I guess, objectively speaking, Mike, are you exposing yourself to defeat at a town meeting, which then negates the opportunity to go to ballot?
Yes.
I understand the goal of the town meeting is to educate people, so is there a way to educate them at a town meeting without the vote being there? And, that accomplishes what you really want to do, but then have a ballot vote, which is the only binding you don't vote anyway. Just, it's
But if you don't-
pretty easy to have,
If there's no vote, you can't have a warrant article. If you can't have a warrant article, then you can't discuss it.
Right, you got a real prick of a moderator, so you can't talk about stuff unless it's there.
So the town meeting is a vote to place the ballot question. That's what you're basically going to town meeting and asking for authorization from the legislative body to place a ballot question, rather than through a citizen's petition, or it can't be done through select board or town clerk or anything. The only other way
I
would be.
guess my concern is that you're exposing yourself to something that may squash, but
But
could you put it on the warrant and then move for no action after discussion?
you need the vote to pass legislation-wide to do that.
Or you get the citizen petition path as the alternate.
Right, you could get.
I don't believe it.
So in churn statistics, right, I'm not old enough to do statistics, but in churn, statistically, if you have a Prop 2.5 that is increase of dollars and cents, right? Typically, it doesn't pass at the ballot, but it will pass at the town meeting. Because people have the opportunity to vote their way they genuine, don't feel, I won't say harassed, but, before we had electronic fobs to vote, if, I rose my hand to do something that Mr. Blair or some influential person in town didn't want you to do, he would speak to you before, after, or during the event to potentially influence you. Now we have the fobs, it's a little bit different, that people can vote the way they choose to. And then at the ballot, if it passes at the town meeting, the chances of it passing at the ballot is more likely not to happen. If it doesn't pass at the town meeting, it's not gonna pass on the ballot.
That's my point.
Right, it's gonna fail in both spots. So, but I think we gotta, yes, it's a legitimate.
Let's ask you to think.
A legitimate question, things that we have to think about of Plan B if we need to use Plan B, but I think we've gotta put every effort forward, and with our 2 or 3 informational meetings, we'll have a good sense of how things are gonna go before the meeting happens, right? We always like to know how our ducks are gonna swim in the pond before you put them in. I'm hoping.
I think we're looking for input from all of you to see whether or not doing this for May seems like something that might be reasonable, or whether we might need to take some more time to get everybody on board.
Mr. Purcell first, and then Peter.
I have this vague recollection from times when we were trying to get the property down the hill that there were certain ducks that a town has to have in a row to go after funding, like a current open space plan, a current ADA plan and inventory of the town. Are there any ducks in a row besides winning at a town meeting or a petition for this to happen that we know of?
Peter?
So, the ducks in a row, aligning the ducks is important for the grant process. And so, we were not eligible for grants because of the problems that we have in our master plan, the fact that our open space and recreation plan is out of date, the fact that as part of that, and even separable, our ADA compliance is troublesome. And the town is making progress on all of those things. I've heard just last night that the OSRP, that's getting a lot closer, they're getting ready to publish, which enables it and the master plan. Master plan is currently blocked by OSRP not being done. But that's all about grants. This CPA money is the only thing that blocks it is town meeting. Okay, technically, the committee has to approve it. The committee decides to place a warrant, to have a warrant article placed. If the committee backs it, then the town has to back it at town meeting. And that's the only thing that blocks it. So there are timing constraints. If we need 120 days to buy a piece of property, then we need a town meeting. If we had the money in the CPA fund to do that, that's what it would take.
But it's really no different than if the selectmen chose to buy buy the property over here. It's all about timing, right? And one thing the Ag Commission has tried to enhance is the ability to communicate and know the proper way to communicate, and the way that 61A property has come in the past to the town, right? So that's things that we're making an improvement, whether it's a selectman decision or the town vote to do it. CPA chooses to vote, and then we still have to have a town meeting to do it. We're not in a position to write the check for $1 million for a piece of property without getting permission, either avenue that we go. I think the one thing that it does, Ted, is it gives us the bank to take from if we need to, right? The other thing that we didn't speak about is this increases our bond rating as well. Is that the note you wrote? Good girl. Oh, we think alike. So in turn, we have the ability to increase our bond rating. A few years ago, our bond rating was pretty low, but we have the ability to physically do it, to help increase that bond rating. I think the one thing that nobody really focuses on this is it's great to have the money, right? But if you have the money, you can do some magical things with it here in the town that we really need in this town, because most years we're struggling to have money to do anything extra that we choose to do, right? And in turn, I think it also opens the opportunity for grants above and beyond CPA grants that is just gonna blow your mind. We're gonna act like Mike Nicholson here, I think, and just have the ability to get some of these grants that we really want to do. I really, truly believe that.
I will say, in conversations with our state legislative reps in the past, they kind of were like, either through, whether it's through earmarks or other opportunities to provide funding above and beyond or outside of grant opportunities, they couldn't really offer a whole lot because we didn't have CPA, and they really view that as like a strong commitment. So we were able to get some funding, but we may have been able to get more or additional funding for other projects if we had CPA to show a commitment that the town is actually committed to this, to the preservation of all three things. The other consideration is we hear a lot about the housing side of things in the state, and having some monies that are dedicated to affordable housing creates an opportunity for us to have more beneficial affordable housing options for our community, and kind of do that responsible growth piece, because there's funds that are dedicated to that, and leverage the state's desire for more housing in a manner that is going to be sustainable for Rutland.
The affordable housing chunk of it can also be used as low-income subsidies as needed as well, so that's an added benefit for it.
Peter?
Philosophically, I completely support CPA, in spite of all the questions I'm about to ask, because they all sound bad. Number one, the difference in income between a no deduction and a $100,000 deduction is roughly $200,000 in the bucket, roughly. After discussion with the assessor's office, and I know that there is controversy around this, but the way she represented it to me is that money all goes into the bucket. That extra $200,000 has to come from somewhere. And that somewhere is an element of money from the state for exemptions, and the rest of it has to come from the town. The assessor has a line item in the budget this year to backfill money that should go into real estate taxes, but isn't there because of exemptions. So there's a potential budget impact to this that needs to be understood better.
Yes.
If you have the exemption.
It doesn't just count, it's not just those, it's for each of the exemptions that could be passed, because the elderly, the low income, the disability, I don't remember all of the possible exemptions that can be put in place. So, and I don't have all of them out, in fact, I don't have information on, all I know for sure is there are a little fewer than 100 personal exemptions to personal property tax right now in this town. And that money is made up from the town's coffers from a line item in the budget.
That's something we'll have to look into, whether or not we
That's right.
decide to do the $100,000
I'm just saying-
base exemption or not.
There's that, and then the other exemptions as well that
Did
are
you say
passed.
that was on personal property? Or was it on real property?
Real property.
Okay.
So it's a wrinkle that I didn't know about until fairly recently.
But isn't the $100,000 exemption just to calculate the surcharge number? Why would that impact the tax? I don't understand how that would impact.
I can only go with what the assessor said,
Okay.
and we didn't get a really deep discussion. So maybe the 100,000 doesn't count, but altogether, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody
find
needs to
out better.
understand that better. That's,
But that's a question we can ask the CPA state person.
Yes.
So speaking of exemptions, while I have the paper in front of me, this was 2023 HUD guidelines. So with, the exemption for seniors, family of two, it's $119,440. The non-senior household, people under 60, is $95,552. So the numbers, that's pretty high, in my view anyways. Just a number to throw out there.
Concern two.
concern two. I said I'm philosophically supportive, but the devil is in the details. Personally, I wanna know how much money you're gonna need, how soon, and what are you gonna spend it on? Now, I know you aren't the people making the final decision, but somebody has to act as an ad hoc CPC, Community Preservation Committee, to formulate a plan, because without a plan, it's just money going into a bucket.
I think that's something that Ag is willing to step up and be the placeholder for while this is being looked into. We can research for all three categories and see kind of what the possibilities are and then gauge public on what interest is for what. I don't know,
And
like, I don't know a lot about historical.
I wouldn't mind if some of it is speculative, saying, we think there are gonna be two properties in 61A over the next that are coming out of 61A over the next 5 years, so we need to plan on, but you gotta know how much money you're gonna need to spend on it, or at least project it. I need to see a plan to support a plan.
Yep.
So, again, we're trying to keep it simple, legitimate question that we spoke about, right? That we honestly had it, right? But we're looking at it maybe in a little bit bigger picture. Because if you say, hey, we only need $500,000 total, right? And before we learned, what we learned is, hey, we want 3%, but we're gonna put the exemption at 500,000 instead of 100,000, which we've learned now that we can't do, right? So if we wanna do the 3%, right, and we can do the 100,000 exemption to keep that number lower, so it's gonna be, we don't really need the $1 million, if that's the actual number, right? But yet, we wanna get our better opportunity to do the 3% grant match for other endeavors. I think it's difficult to do that. I think if we say, hey, we don't, Jordan's property isn't gonna come available for 3 years, so we don't need, I don't know what, but, we don't need a ton of money coming up. But we don't know what that is. And it's not just for 61, it's for open space, right? That we could choose to buy out of the blue that probably will never get there, but because the price would be too high, you know what I'm saying? So I think, legitimate question, I think we thought about it a little bit, and we have two questions behind you probably in regards to the same subject. Michelle?
Yeah, I'm thinking, Peter, that's a little bit short-sighted to say, what are we gonna spend it on? Like, do we have to have it all earmarked? Because when we talk about like all of the stuff that the town needs right now that needs to get done, I'm sure there's a laundry list that we could spend all of that money within the next 3 years. But I think we also need a plan for keeping a piggy bank, right? Like you wanna have a slush fund so that if something does become available, we can act on it. If we're spending it as fast as we're getting it, that's not gonna be a good idea either. Am I right?
I agree that you need to have a fund set aside, and that would be, I would think would be part of the plan. Without understanding what the nature of about the intent of spending the money, you can't know how much money you're gonna need and how quickly you're going to need it. So that the 3% may be too little, but that's what we're stuck with. The 3% might be far more than we'll need in the boundaries of time that we can think of the things that we believe are likely to happen over the next
I
period
don't
of
think that
time.
Peter's looking for exact specifics. I think he's more looking for categories of what this could be used for, what the plan is to use it for, like a list of
Like
historical sites
ADA
that could use it or,
compliance
right.
and upgrading buildings, and I can think of 15 projects off the top of my head right now that we could spend it on.
So I think part of our philosophy, our initial philosophy here was of tell you what we missed in the past.
Yeah.
And maybe possibly give you some of the future projections, right? Part of the selectmen's reason that they didn't choose to do that other 61A property recently was, I think they genuinely thought it was a great idea, but guys, we can spend $400,000 on 14 other things, exactly what you're saying, Michelle, that one way or another, we can figure out how to word it to build a new town hall, right? How do you build it? Do you leave the old town hall up with one wall and put something up? That's way above my pay grade of thinking, but in turn, that's a possibility to do it. So I think we're there, Peter, it's just maybe a different direction of where we get where the answer you wanted on your question too. Mr. Sullivan had a question first on that?
No, go ahead, it's fine, because I
No,
got
I
a
was just
couple
gonna
of
make a comment, somebody has equated this to a 401K with the company match. Yeah, you're more benefit to max out the company match and in the long run have extra money in retirement than say, well, I only need, $1,000 a month and that's what I'm gonna live with for the rest of the year. Why not go for it and live large?
I think that's a key thing that we had talked about before is we don't wanna use the word tax because everybody thinks tax is bad and we're gonna tar and feather everybody at the center of town, right? We like the philosophy of the 401K match, right? It's a smaller number, let's plan for the future and go from there. Did you have a question
I have a bunch of thoughts that I,
on this subject here? Because he has 13 more ideas.
No, I'll yield the floor, I don't mind.
Okay, because she had a question over here behind Tommy a long time ago that I forgot about.
Oh.
You don't remember what the question was, like?
I do.
How's that affect on people?
I've seen, like, you're getting your open space, our open space and rec plan is really gonna be critical because you wanna be able to apply for those state grants. And the problem I see in the community where I work is grants have so many strings attached these days. Like, people with EJ communities get precedence, people that are gonna join the MBTA, they want you to be MVP communities, like the state's like pushing all this stuff on us that we don't necessarily want. But like I said, there's strings attached if you want a park grant, a land grant, you have to be this or you have to be that, but like what Peter was saying, CPA doesn't have a lot of strings, it's just like straight out money that you just go to town meeting for, and I've seen other communities have done such awesome things with their CPA stuff. And I just I haven't been in Rutland that long, but I see, since I joined the community, it's like a lot of, what's the word? The builders kind of are doing what they wanna do. Not always, but I mean, the commission's getting, the conservation commissions, I think we're getting better, we're working on a bylaw and we want an agent, so. And I also think you need to tell people what we don't have in Rutland. We don't have open space, we don't have land trusts that we can collaborate with, for example. And saying what we don't have is gonna make it even more agreeable, I think.
We're trying to partner with some land grants to do some other things. We used to have the Rutland Land Conservancy that now has.
Yeah, I sent a check in and it came back to me. I was like, oh, I guess they're closed.
As an added comment to that, for the, at least for the recreational grants in the state, about 40% of them require the town to be CPA in order to even consider you at all.
Wow.
And our only park hasn't been used and upgraded as anything down there in Putnam Park. And to me, this is ideal. I'm looking forward to something in that park coming from this thing.
Mr. Sullivan?
I say this with all due respect to the group, I understand who you are and what your goals and objectives are, and I'm in general in favor of the CPR. I'm now thinking of myself as a general taxpayer at a town meeting. And if the Ag Commission comes in and is trying to push this to, and I've heard it said a couple times here, again, no disrespect, to preserve farms, you're gonna have people that are at that meeting that they don't give a damn about farms. All they care is their tax rate is what it is, and it's potentially gonna go up. So to me, I think the sell should not be that you wanna preserve farms, you wanna try to control the tax rate by controlling, not controlling, wrong word. Every house that's built that has kids in it, we know costs us money. Some people don't believe that, but I think most people do. I think that should be part of the sell. You sit and you say, okay, that parcel right there, if there's whatever, X number of kids, houses built with X number of kids in it, that's gonna cost the town X, and now your tax rate is gonna go up, because of that. Number one. I guess the second thing that I would say is, we know how difficult it was to get that override passed just this past year. I know one of the questions gonna come up is, what's happened to that override? Where is it? How long is it gonna last? Where is our budget? I know you guys don't wanna address that, but you're gonna have to at a town meeting, because that's gonna be, someone's gonna have to address it, because if we sit at a town meeting and we say, all right, we spent all that override money, and you know what, we're now in trouble, we gotta make cuts, people are gonna be sitting there going, what, are you kidding me? We just voted an override, now you wanna add another tax? So, again, I'm not looking to debate, I'm just asking you to think about that. And then, the other question that I would have is, the money that has come out of the HBDD sale of the land. There's $1.5 million sitting in the town's piggy bank that is, I believe, has earmarked to it to buy land. That's one of the purposes of it. Why isn't that being considered? Why hasn't it been considered? Will it ever be considered? To me, it's just kind of sitting there, no one's paying attention to it until, in my opinion, capital projects come along, we need a new whatever, that requires 5 years of borrowing, and they're gonna wanna spend it on that instead. So, again, what I'm saying is, as a taxpayer, you got money sitting there, why aren't we using that? Which is what it is specifically for.
Peter, do you have a comment in regards to that, or would you like me to give it mine?
It's not earmarked for land, it's earmarked for any project that we would normally borrow money for. So, we could buy a fire truck with that money, for example.
Right.
There are a number of uses that could be, and people, that will likely be coming up soon for how that money's gonna get used.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I just said, it's for capital projects over 5 years of borrowing, and, you know as well as I do, in my opinion, the first priority of that money is gonna be for those things, not for what we're talking about right here. And again, as a taxpayer, I'm gonna be sitting there saying, why? So, I'm not asking you for an answer, I'm just saying, you better be prepared to walk through that minefield.
But let me just refresh your memory here. In regards to the property on Walnut and Emerald, Viner's cornfield, for the lack of better terms, right? Every committee supported it. It wasn't a ton of money. Yes, it was on the outskirts of town. Everybody was in favor of it, right? And everybody understands that open space costs us less money than homes do as a whole, right? That's not rocket scientists here to figure it out. But the selectmen felt and had enough feedback from outside people, non-committees, saying that we need to spend that $400,000 in a different direction, right? So the challenge is you've got to convince others to do exactly what you're saying to do, right? And I think CPA has the ability to have money set aside for those purposes easier than that. We need a fire truck, right? We need a new town hall, right? Well, we can go to the townspeople and say, hey, you want to raise your taxes to do that? And they can say yes or no, right? Now, all of a sudden, hey, we want to buy a 20-acre piece of property for $500,000 to keep it open space. And well, geez, we don't want our taxes to go up, but we love the idea. Well, we don't need to do that because that money's sitting over there, right? So I think it's an easier conclusion of where we want to get and to eliminate some of those exact questions you're asking, if we can get there.
The problem I have though is the $1.5 million that's sitting in the piggy bank wasn't there a year ago. And in reality, will never happen again. So why are we earmarking it just for capital projects?
Because that's what the law says.
Or land. What's that? Or land.
Well, and land is a capital up
Yeah, no, I agree,
so-
but all I'm saying is that, at this moment, the land is the bottom of that list. Lastly, the other thing I think that someone should be doing, since we all accept the fact that this land is all 61A land, why we haven't prioritized, the town has not prioritized all parcels of 61A land and said, okay, here they are, and let's put together a pecking order of the top, whatever, 25 of them that the town should be interested in purchasing. And now if number 24 comes along, we say, yeah, we'd like to have that, but number 2's coming along next year. That's the one we really want. We don't have that right now. And to me, it's kind of a shotgun approach. Every time 61A land comes up, everybody gets all excited about it. And in the 50 years I've been voting in this town, we've never bought a piece yet.
So, the Ag Commission has developed a policy, the score sheet. Town of Holden has done this for years. And our intention, when we have time, and we have to make it more of a priority, but we've seemed to get diverted on different great ideas that we're doing here at the Ag Commission, is to rank those, right? The variable that you have is we gotta do better as a community or an Ag Commission to communicate with these folks and see what their long-term range is, right? Most people won't show their hand to 61A purchases, hey, Jordan Farm is gonna sell in 5 years, that's not it. There's always rumors out, right? There's rumors that maybe one on Glenwood Road may be coming up here shortly, right? But that, to the best of our knowledge, nobody has come to the Ag Commission and say, hey, guys, we'd like to save this some way. What can we do where we would like to sell it? None of that's come forward, right? And the ability to talk about personal things like that was challenging in regards to that, but we are on the same page as you of prioritize our things. And 24 may come available before 2 ever thinks about coming available, right? So.
I also think that CPA would help with encouraging people to come forward with that information, because it wouldn't be, hey, I need some help saving this farm, and us saying, okay, well, we'll see what we can do. Like, we would actually have money that was set aside for that, as opposed to having to go through all the other committees and make sure nothing else takes precedence.
One other thing we did, about a year ago, I believe it was, Amy Evanowski went through the database and pulled all the 61A properties for us. We did a mass mailer to everybody on that list in combination with the East Quabbin Land Trust to give them options on their land. So we have the score sheet, and we put some information out there. We had a handful of people come to like an open house thing. It wasn't.
And not only that, Amy has also set up the new map, if we wanted to have the 61 on the map now. So that is just happened, I would say in the last month and a half or so. So that's one of the things we were waiting for too, in order to go and make sure the property's proper, and then to start with this.
But what is the criteria, excuse me, sorry. What is the criteria that the 61A is being ranked? How is that being ranked?
It's a score sheet. It's got 5 or 6 different questions in there. No, it's more than that. 20 different questions, and it's a point. It's something that Town of Holden done. It's fairly successful in the way they've done it. They've ranked most of their properties.
Was everything from historical to threat of development to water resources, anything, like I said, 20 items.
So it works for the Town of Holden. There are ways around all this. I mean, I can have a sidebar conversation with you of the Town of Holden has had very few 61A parcels go before the town of any size or value that the town can afford to do. There's a large parcel on Salisbury Street that's going forth now of the Donnie McKay property, Sunrise Dairy down there on Salisbury Street right now, that they would love to purchase because of the larger parcel, that you really don't think of 61A, but it's been 61A for years and farmed to a smaller scale recently, right? But they don't have funds to do that right now on a large scale. The average builder would do 1 acre here, 5 acres here, and most of the time, the town doesn't wanna gobble it up to do it together. There's also other long-term planning in regards to 61A parcels of not necessarily, as you probably know and others know, is you can't go to the town unless you have a purchase and sale agreement to have the matching funds if it's in 61A parcel to do it. You can't say, hey, geez, I'd like to give my 61A property up to the town and do that because they have no number to do that. We had that challenge on Ridge Road here a little while ago that they took it, wanted to change use of it, which is a very rare occasion to happen in 61A parcel. That's when the town had to go out and get an appraisal to physically do it. They had the ability to counteract it and they wanted development price versus ag price. And then they could come to a compromise and we could purchase it at that particular time on that situation, a very convoluted thing. They pulled all back, said we're all done with it, and now they're selling bits and pieces off at acre parcels. So there's different ways around that to physically do it. There's APR out there as well, through the state, that you can, they give you the difference of the value that help protect it and keep it open, that sometimes the town is asked to partner with, and I believe, I could be wrong, that CPA money could be used to help do some of the APR funding to do that, to do it, and it doesn't become ownership of the town, but it preserves it to open space, right? So,
Well, the last thing I'll say is, and I'll shut up for the rest of the night, is there are, it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, given the circumstances that the state is in. Just, I say it all the time, thank God Rutland Heights got torn down, because if it wasn't, what do you think would be there now? I mean, it would be being used for housing, in my opinion. And, you know, we have residential housing, senior housing, and because we're so woefully short on low-income housing, you know, we're nowhere near the threshold we're supposed to be. It's gonna happen in this town, guaranteed it's gonna happen. We're gonna have 40B, and that, there's nothing we can do about it, and, you know, the impact on our town could be devastating. So I guess what I'm telling you is, to me, that's part of your sell.
thank you. Jen?
As far as purchasing land for open space, would we be limited to 61A property, or could we choose anything that's on the market? Okay, that's my first question. My second question, I think a lot of the conversations focused on using these funds to purchase property, which I have no problem with, but it's also for recreational purposes and historical preservation, and not just like, meaning we're gonna preserve the woodhouse. It's, we need to make updates to the town hall. We need to make it ADA compliant. Those are projects that would be applicable for these funds. And for buildings that we use, like that's a historical purpose because that town has historic value, that building has historic value. So I just wanna make sure that we're not losing sight to Mike's point that it's, you know, there's gonna be a lot of people out there that are like, what about purchasing farm property? Then what are we gonna use it for? What's all the open space? We need to make sure that we're putting in all of the other, like we've been talking about, what are some of the things that we could have used this money for in the past that we've missed out on? And what are some of the opportunities that we currently have that we could use the money for, that the town has already shown interest in? I mean, we know they want open space. We know they want fields for the kids to play on. We know they want new playgrounds. Like, these are all things that
How do you know that information?
just from everybody that talks about everything.
No.
Any parent of your
You're not answering the question like I want you to.
We wanna talk about the surveys, don't you?
Yeah.
I wanna talk about the master plan that nobody looks at in this town. Right? The master plan as a whole will tell you 88% of the people don't wanna change how the town is. Right? But very few people in the town of Rutland open that up and gather their information from.
And a majority of them support CPA.
And Randy,
But that's
just,
not how
you
they
know, I was on the planning board over 20 years ago, we did a master plan, and the results are exactly the same as they were then.
Did they look at it 20 years ago or not?
Where are we now? You tell me.
So the four things that we have listed as the historic preservation projects that could have been done is prison camps, Red Schoolhouse, Woodhouse, and the old fire station. Are all things that this could have gone towards and hypothetically could be still done, but
Senior center?
It's not historic.
I don't think the people can be historic.
It's not
I
a
think it
senior
has to
center
be the
anyways.
actual-
That's also true.
The old school, they used to be right out here in the parking lot, that was all set up for new offices, Concom and planning board had beautiful spaces in there.
But I think even if you think about some, like all the old cemetery sites in town that we go around for the Memorial Day services and everything, that could really use some rehab. So, and the prison camps still, we got some state funding for that, but there's been a lot of conversation at the state level for that, so, if there's additional funding and kind of like a true commitment from the town that it's important, not just by people showing up and saying, but that the town has done something to show that we value the historic side of things.
One of the projects that was mentioned by Isaiah during the Westminster presentation was that one of the towns was able to, they had a section of a really old cemetery where some of the mausoleums were just a mess, and they were able to spend $75,000 from the fund. The state matched another 50, and then they were able to match that entire 125 through another grant. So the town was able to spend $75,000 on a $250,000 project. And they were able to restore the whole thing. And I guess it would have otherwise taken them 4 years to get the money for it, and they were able to do it in about 6 months, so.
Well, and I think it's also, you know, a lot of these projects that we're talking about are things that we'd like to do, but there's other things that we just, as a town, financially have to spend money on first. They always seem to fall to the bottom of the list, and this is a way that we can earmark funds specifically for these things that people want to see, and we can actually see forward progress on a lot of them.
Yep.
Hey, does anybody know the turnover rate for residents in town? Like, so a family moves into town, do they stay here for 5 years, 10 years, 2 years? Is it just like a hit and run? The reason, my point is, so let's say we got all these new developments, we got all these new families, new kids. It's really, they should look at this as an investment for their, if they plan on staying here, it's like, hey, this is your investment, guys. You're the young crowd in town. A lot of older people are, whatever, they're not having kids in school anymore. They're not, maybe not really concerned with recreation or this or that, but it's really their decision. It's like, you guys want to invest in your own town? This is the way to do it. So if they don't want to do it, you know, that's their deal. You know, it's, you can't knock me over the commission, but it's their investment. This fund is for them.
I think an important part of that is also that people move to Rutland for a reason. It's because they like the town. And if they would like that town to remain the town that they moved to in the first place, this would be a crucial part in keeping that able to happen.
Yeah, I think so. But that's a way to, you know, let some of these people know. It's like, this fund is for you, for the future of the town. We don't know exactly when a piece of property is gonna come up. They can't say, oh, that's gonna come up in a year from now. We don't know that. Nobody knows. So if the money's not there, you know, SOL, done.
So let's,
Excuse me 1 second, that picture right there, the right-hand side of that road, all it would have taken is $1 million more for the DCR to give to Mr. Blair, and there would be no houses on that property right there.
Where is that, Richard?
Central Tree Road, Central Elm Tree Road, excuse me. But that's where the corner is, and that's where the
Well, that's
the barn
depressing.
is on the right-hand side. And it was Watts Farm, and then Mr. Blair bought it, and they came in, and Blair says, I want $1 million more. They thought about it, and I'm sitting here with my fingers crossed, because that would have made a wildlife corridor all the way from Wachusett Reservoir all the way up to Indian Reservoir, Pine Hill Reservoir over here, and then Long Pond. But they couldn't come up with the money.
Well, now that painting's just depressing.
So,
I'd like to.
so if we go back to the original question, I don't wanna be here all night. I'd like to limit our time and be conscious of everybody to get home at a reasonable hour tonight as well. So is it a fair comment that we've answered an awful lot of questions tonight? Can I ask the original question? Does the majority of the people in this room think the town should pursue the idea of a CPA? So that's, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? So there's very few that are opposed, okay? So
Silent minority.
I think probably the next question would be, do the people in this room understand why the Ag Commission think it would be to our best interest to do everything possible to go toward 3%?
Yes.
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 Are there people that think less than 3% would be easier to pass at town but limit our opportunities?
Without question.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't agree.
It depends on whether you have the exemption.
Say that again, please?
Depends on whether you have the $100,000 exemption.
So
I have a draft email, I'm gonna send to ask.
To do that again.
So, would the majority of the people in this room feel that we are more likely to pass this at a town meeting and ballot if we had the $100,000 exemption in place
With 3%.
The 3%.
Yes.
at 3%? So the majority of our questions have been answered tonight in how we want to go forward. Are there other questions here or points that people would like to make?
I'm just thinking that the 3% thing is great, but, you know that, again, we can change this. If we get 2% passed, following year, we can go back and say, hey, next town meeting, let's bring this up again. Look at how much money we've made. Look how much we've saved. Let's kick it up to 3%. I mean, I don't know, we can do that.
Can that be done?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking to get it through, you know, if we go for the 3 and it gets turned down, then we're back to square one again.
Well, it's also, I mean, the other thing you can do with town meetings, you can reduce the percent. If we say,
Right.
we have a certain amount of money that's enough to cover these things that we want,
Right.
we're gonna take it down to 1%, or well, you can't take it down to 0%. But you could do 0.01%. I believe it's as low as you can
We can
go.
adjust it. We have the ability.
Make it worth our while,
You really need
If
to.
you're gonna fight,
3%.
Yeah.
You're not
You
gonna
need
get
the
the additional
3% and
state.
then
pennies
if it's not gonna pass, somebody can stand up and make an amendment
Yeah.
to lower it, to get it to pass.
remember that's the gentleman.
Probably won't know until it's too late.
You'll have a good hunch.
Because your town meeting's the middle of May, or our town
May
meeting?
11th.
Only May.
My birthday.
Yeah, that's really right around the corner. Would it be better to just like take the next 10 months to just educate our residents?
No.
No,
No,
And then go to town meeting next year?
no.
no.
Why?
Because if we have an election year, he's right, we're gonna have a much bigger turnout at the November election, and you'll get people to vote, like.
The timing is what.
And why wait? And why wait? That's another year that we don't have money to do anything, like.
But I think the argument is there's
And a half that's sitting there.
there's never a good time to do it, and so we make a commitment and do the push, whether it's now or whenever, but I think the commitment from AgCom is to do it now and is looking for support from everyone in this room and the other boards and commissions to really help do that education, support piece, understand where the questions are, what the concerns are, and everything so that they can be addressed. But I think, I think since I've been on the board, we've tossed around the idea of doing CPA, and it's always been, not this year. It's for whatever reasons. And I think this year, AgCom really kind of feels that they have the push and the drive to do it, so.
Okay, but what is part of educating the residents? You like Facebook, flyers, mailings, all of the above?
All of the above.
Meetings.
Yep, I was gonna say, I think information meetings, if we go into similar, like having budget
That's the only hope you have.
budget meetings, like similar to last year, if there's public information budget meetings, including a portion for CPA, you know, trying to stagger it with announcements. But I think, yeah, to your point, it's gonna need to be kind of full out for sure.
And if we can pass it at town meeting, we'll also have, 5 months to have more question and answer sessions and hopefully get out some more information and get people on board.
Now, is it legal, like at the voting booths, can we have, instead of giving everybody that walks through the door a rundown, hey, this is
No,
what.
that's electioneering.
Do that.
Absolutely not.
Peter, didn't you say the town meeting is just to say, can we put this on the ballot?
Yeah, I think you
I mean,
could do leaflets.
why would somebody say, no, I don't wanna give the rest of the town an opportunity to vote on this? I mean, do we leave it?
Because
Preventing the
people
raising
will
of
vote that
taxes.
down,
But do
yeah.
we have to decide a rate at the warrant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think the warrant article at the annual town meeting is basically the language of what the ballot question would be. And so that would include the surcharge and any and all exemptions that the town opts to take.
But if it doesn't pass, then you can do that
The petition.
yes.
Right, which would basically take
We have
that,
enough time.
essentially take that question and ask the public for, you'd have to, 400-ish, 500 signatures from registered voters, and then turn it
Randy
into
can do
town
in an
clerk.
afternoon, so.
Turn it into town clerk and get the signatures certified, and then it would be
His writing hand
placed,
must get tired.
Turkeys.
so.
So in regards to your, can we push it out to the next town meeting? I have an opinion about that, right? And we are all busy, we all procrastinate, or the majority of this table procrastinates far longer than they should. We wouldn't talk about it for the first year and a half, and we'd forget about it, or we'd get it on the ballot, right? Westminster proved that exactly what you're suggesting to do that wasn't successful for them, right? And that was a committee, and they had, for the lack of better terms, 2 full-time people, and that's all they did, was meeting after meeting, educate people, and they probably developed more questions, but the last month to 2 months of his weekends was 100% answering questions on Facebook. So part of my concern is there could be more questions that come out that are good questions, but potentially could make people quiver on the line, right? And if we can do the best job that we can to educate these people and talk about the 401K instead of taxes, right? We're gonna do a lot better. And I think this committee is trying to promote positive efforts going forward in half thing. We will answer the negatives of the questions, the what ifs, but we won't dwell on those. And we're gonna try to put together what we could have, what we potentially will, to do going forward with all positive. Is it going to be challenging in, 3 months? Between now and May 11th to get it accomplished, but I think we can. And if we haven't done a great job, Westminster wanted this to be, they didn't want to win by 1% in Westminster. They genuinely wanted to win by a lot, right? To help prove it to everybody going forward to do what they were doing, right? I'm sorry, I'll win by 1%. And then I'll take the opportunity to educate the people the best we can for the ballot, or make them aware of what's going on and why it passed, and deal with the negative comments that we have at the town meeting to try to convince people differently of that, or get the answers that we don't know. We may not know all the answers.
Right.
You know, by then, there could be more questions. But I think we gotta keep it simple. I think we have the ability to do it. And I'm sorry to say, but the Ag Commission was successful in our 20 years that we've, maybe not 20 years, but we've been around a long time and doing some things, and we've accomplished some greater tasks or uncharted territories. The farmers seem to talk more or shovel poop better than the rest of them, right? And in turn, I think we have the same ability and the drive to do this. I think what we're genuinely asking is, you from all the committees that are here, right, is take it back to your committee, talk about it, come up with a list of questions. Welcome to come back to other meetings, that we're welcome to have another group meeting like this as we go forward, or be part of that. But we need a list of questions, but then we're genuinely going to ask for a letter of support, right? We need you to take a motion at each and every individual board doing it. And I think the thing to do is, if you have a con, and they vote 3-2 in favor of it, you've gotta go with you got a favorable vote from them, right? And the people hold the value of you committees as a lot, right? In the past, it's planning board only on for zoning issues, FinCon and the selectmen, right? And most of the time, they'll ask, geez, why did the FinCon vote negatively on this, right? And there's usually a reason other than, hey, we don't have the money, wasn't brought up right, or we could do something different right there. Selectmen, anytime it typically goes to a town meeting, they always are in favor of it. Sometimes they have to do no action, but very seldom does the selectmen say no go, right? On citizens petition, if I'm correct, the selectmen and the finance don't have to give an opinion of that, which sometimes it gives the people in the audience more of a, why aren't the selectmen and the finance supporting it, right? Well, they don't need to do that because it's a citizen's petition. You can ask their opinion, but they can't give you a vote for it, right? So going in the way we're going in, we hopefully are gonna have 100% support. We have verbal support of the town administrator already, that he's fairly excited about it and going forward with it. That holds a fair amount of weight as well, doing that. Yes.
Westminster also said they drew it out over 2 years, and he regretted that because there was a lot of misinformation that got out, and then it had 2 years to fester.
Yeah, that's not good.
Could we request that the state CPA rep be present at the town meeting?
We can do that, but not likely to do it because the response that we got there, only have 2 of them that don't have it. So I think the best we can do is formulate as many questions or get educated the best we can to eliminate the majority of the things that we can handle. I mean, we could probably ask the Westminster expert to come down and be our representative to speak on more knowledge than we have. But you'd be surprised in 2 weeks of how much information that some of these people sitting around this table have gained.
Is this being filmed?
Yes.
I hope not.
It's being.
It is?
It's being streamed, yeah.
Good God, I have to be, they got me spilling the drink on my lap?
You bet. I'm gonna focus in on that.
Using naughty words
I wanna say, there's state,
one thing I think
I
it
know you
should
need
be-
to go quick, but there's communitypreservation.org is the website that's kind of where the state puts all of the, it's an NGO essentially, where all the information is. There's a whole lot of information. It links to the MGL, it links to sample questions and everything. So there's a ton of information there that can direct you to additional places. So it's communitypreservation.org.
It also has uses like what other towns have used it for, and there's a lot on there.
A lot of data you can pull to see how much has been matched or what communities do what and everything. So you can spend hours.
I wonder if we could even do, not to put Tamika on the spot, but if she could help us come up with a web page where we could start putting this information, here's information about what CPA is, here's what this town was able to accomplish with it, here's, an example of a contribution so they could see what it would be.
We were gonna have a calculator on there.
Yeah.
We've talked about that. I was hoping Austin was gonna be here tonight because the Ag Commission really needs a clerk help to do it. And I think if they're in favor of it, Tamika or someone could help.
I think the push, if I may, is for select board to vote on it, and then if the select board supports it, then there can be staff or another board or commission that has staff support. But right now, because it's kind of an idea, to allocate a lot of staff time is a tough.
Got it.
Leah, that website that you referenced, there's tons of information in there. Even if just putting that up on either our site or some site on the town site. And then we can put this calculator up there as well.
I just
That's a
wanna
good
have
start.
a source of truth for people, because like you said, there's a lot of misinformation that can be out there, and just to be able to point to something that says, that's not really, this is what it is, this is not, it's not a negative thing, it's gonna get you more of what you want.
Exactly what people are asking for at every meeting, at everything.
Mr. Sullivan?
Randy, you asked us to introduce ourselves and the boards we're associated with. I just want to make it clear that the opinions of, I think, everybody out here does not represent our boards. We're not in a
Absolutely
quorum. You folks are in a quorum, we're not, just for the public's benefit.
Thank you for that clarification.
Just for everybody to know, Mike Sullivan just left early.
Didn't sign out.
Oh, he's gone. Mr. Sullivan's back.
At least he's dry.
So Ag Commission is in meeting, so probably we will, if the majority of the questions have been answered, I would probably say that we're welcome to, you guys are welcome to leave. The Ag Commission may have a little bit of internal discussion and may send a letter out of here stating to the selectmen to, hey, could you give us a letter of support that we could get some additional help to move forward with it and make some decisions going there. This is an off night for us at Rutland Ag Commission anyways, but we wanted to do it with a group committee, and we felt there's some urgency of getting the ball rolling if we choose to roll in this direction, and that's our intentions of doing. Ag Commission doesn't want to meet, every week from now till May. We just don't physically have time with everything that we have going on as an Ag Commission right now doing that. So I think the majority of you have access to any one members of the Ag Commission via an email, or phone numbers are easily accessible if you have suggestions or comments going forward. But I think the Ag Commission as a whole would ask for you to bring it back to your committees and start to drum up business or questions amongst yourselves and possible support for us, right? I think we'll ask probably the selectmen formally to say, hey, would you be willing to support the Ag Commission going forward with staff of some sort to do what we can? I mean, Tamika has been great to the Ag Commission and a couple other situations that we've had in town, and writing some letters and helping with some of that stuff that some members of us can't type or run a computer very easily, but she can and make things happen magically. So I think we're gonna do that positively. And I think we're, as a whole, gonna gather information, and we probably will get our website up and make people aware where they can go, whether, even if it's just links, right? And Bob has done a calculator that you can put in, hey, how much is it gonna cost me at my house? My house is $800,000. You can plug it in, right, and make a working formula. How we get it to the computer, that's way above our pay grade, but we can, Tamika-like person could help us get it there to do all things like that. So we certainly thank everybody for coming to do this. We're happy to entertain questions, but again, we're appreciative and mindful of everyone's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you.
the chairs and the table have to go somewhere.
How's it going? Good.
Good.
I don't know what else we gotta talk about here tonight, but
I think we probably should take a vote and send the formal letter to selectmen asking.
we should probably take a formal vote. When we wanna do this, right? We haven't even taken a formal vote on a CPA.
No, they have
So I would make a motion.
take all this information.
We continue to spearhead, lead, whatever we're doing
Thank
in
you.
regards to this.
Thank you.
I'll send the presentation around, the final one around to all of you.
Thank you. So I would make a motion that the Ag Commission lead and spearhead the crusade to success for a CPA in the town of Rutland.
Second that.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
So I also would make a motion that we send a letter to the selectmen stating that we would like to get their support and possible help, clerical help, for the lack of better terms, to help accomplish this task.
To proceed forward.
Right, so.
We can mention we had a positive, this was a positive thing tonight, even though, like Sully said, they're not here to represent their commission, but they're here just to, but otherwise we could mention we had a positive turnout with, everyone was.
Yeah, we should state that, right? We had a group meeting and we can say.
Everyone was for it, you know?
I'm sure you took attendance and wrote that down. Oh, well, we can get that off, we can get it off the video, right? So, great idea. I didn't know it was taped. We probably should have stated that it was taped, but in turn, we can do that, right? And we can state right in that letter to the selectmen, guys, we had 25 people here, all had positive comments. There were questions, and do that. But I make that a motion that we ask for help.
In direction, maybe.
In direction. And so let's get that second, and then I got another one.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So I think we probably should send a formal email to all the committees that were invited tonight and ask them if they would do exactly what we asked them to do, but do it formally with a letter, right? So they have to potentially read it there, and part of their challenges is the poor communication amongst all the boards as a whole, right? But if we send them a letter stating, would you guys please talk about this and potentially vote to support CPA
Yeah.
as soon as possible, right? And there'll be more to come. They're not committing to any numbers because we're not in a position to do a number, but for the lack of better terms, I think we're almost there already, right? But I would ask a letter to go out to all the committees. I would also, to include the committees, I would like the town administrator to be CC'd, which I believe he was for this, and the town assessor, right? So if they have any thoughts that they can formally get back to the Ag Commission, then we can bring it forth, right? So that's a request that I'm sure.
Can we, in any of these letters that we send out, select board and these committees, can we attach all the Bob stuff on there? Just because we talked about it, everyone's good, but can we attach these things so they can look at it
So
amongst themselves?
I would suggest that we get whatever we think, whatever Bob's done, I would put it right onto the Rutland Ag page. And just direct them to go right to our own page.
Who updates that?
You.
I don't know.
Nita?
I don't know how to.
We're gonna ask Tamika manages the website for the town.
Well, better get me on this committee, cause I can handle that.
So.
You can, great.
So in turn, Tamika will put it up there. I don't think we have the, Economic Development has the ability to do their own webpage, but we don't.
Yeah, so we want to just direct them to our.
Yes.
That's fine, just so
we
they
can
know
say
they
that.
can get the information somewhere, cause they're gonna go back and educate all their people, right? They gotta.
On those letters to CPA, just so that they didn't,
I would think so.
yeah, just so that.
There's something there, but we're gonna get, we can inform them that we're gonna start to put.
So they
stuff on.
can, if they can go to cpa.org and read it for themselves, it'll be in front of them.
Yeah.
That way they won't be getting misinformation.
Right, they need to get communicated.
We gotta have zero misinformation.
That's what cost the
Westminster, right?
Yes.
And if there is misinformation out there, we gotta roll it in. So I would make that a motion.
I'll second that.
To roll with misinformation.
Discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
So I would make a motion to adjourn. I mean, but, guys, I certainly appreciate everybody that's done all the homework in between. I have reviewed most of the homework that has come through. Often you go with your hunch on everything that you do, and I have a really good feeling with this. I genuinely do. I think we got a great thing here. I think we got a great group of people that are spearheading it. I think Isaac, did a great job.
Did a heck of a
Isaiah.
job.
You'll get it eventually.
Maybe.
So I think we all did a great job, and
Well, one thing I think we do need to do is get into some of these technical things with the numbers and the percentages. Cause, when we walked in here tonight, there was a couple of questions that kinda threw me for a second, which isn't what I read,
Yeah, I thought you guys were coming at 5:30.
right?
I was the only one here.
Yeah, so the 0 and 100,000 thing, that's one or the other. I thought it was somewhere in, you could go, oh, let's do a 50,000.
We could do 500 the other night.
Yeah, even the Westminster thought the same thing.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm saying, is some of those things I looked for that information and it didn't jump out at me.
So, but those are questions that Leah is
It's not
willing
easy
to
to find.
reach out to, and you guys, we had that group text going on, that certainly is, as long as we're only answering, well, we gotta be careful what we do there in a group text.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, yes.
You know, ethics wise or whatever, but we don't have many ethics here, so.
So, but just the fact that, you know, I mean, not that 3% is great, but I guess there is always that option if these numbers aren't working out and we get a negative feedback, that you could go with a 1% and then you increase at a town meeting. I thought, no,
You'll never pass it.
We'll never pass an increase. I think
I think the 3% is the way to go.
I think we'd be better off going for the 3%.
I think,
And then
I think
tell
the
them that we can go
challenge
down.
is gonna be, is to switch this from how much are my taxes going up, is to, if you have an average house in town, it's $145 for you.
Period.
That's it.
And it's a 401K.
Right.
I'd also like to
Now,
find out,
the only thing that's gonna change it is the valuation of the property.
Yeah.
But I genuinely don't think you need to tell the people that.
Now, the money the account that it goes into, that's the fund, can we invest, or, you know, I know we don't want to invest it and lose it, but can we put it in the money market?
No.
Can we get
It's up
anything,
to the town treasurer.
Town treasurer manages all that.
Okay, so
It's just like the greenhouse funding.
that's fine, all right, good, as long as hopefully they put it in some type of like something to make some interest on it.
Do we get the interest?
Probably not, Dick, come on, there's next to no interest. But
But I mean, once we get that number.
it goes into
for the
our
average
envelope,
house,
as my
I
mother
mean,
always
that's
used to
what we
do
gotta
as a kid.
push.
It's our envelope.
You know,
They
the
can't take it
formula-
out for any reason.
I mean, the formula is somebody that really wants to crunch the numbers, they'll run the formula.
I'd also like to find out what the average state contribution for a town with the same qualifications as Rutland is and see what that $145 turns into. Like, all right, you're paying $145 and the fund is getting $225 or something.
Great idea, but my initial reaction is, we can have that answer, but we can't confuse people.
No.
We really gotta keep this pretty close to the belt, or whatever you wanna key it, to do it. It's a great answer, because you're gonna have that question on the floor, and we wanna answer it, but I don't think you wanna dwell on it. And that's part of the positive things that we gotta do. And we gotta talk in the big picture of things, right? We can't say the $145 for Randy Jordan this year would've got me, 3 acres of carrot fields or something. You know what I'm saying is, I think you wanna talk on the grander scale in regards to, Hubbardston. Guys, Hubbardston would have never had this unless they had this program. That was $1 million slate roof that went on. And
I think another thing we need, Randy, is, I think with Mike Sullivan's talking about, it's all about farmland, but we really need the historical society.
Yes.
And we don't have a housing authority, but we need somebody to step up with the housing end of this. Because
We need
that's
to
what,
represent all three
because
categories.
30% of this money is earmarked for those categories.
Maybe we should find out the towns
Only
that are around us
10%.
that have CPA, trying to find out what they have done with their money for historic, for open space, and so forth.
some of that's public
Well,
already on
if
the
you go into
website.
that website that Leah talked, that's where I got all this, there's a line, like,
There's
100
basically
different
line by line items,
examples
yeah.
of towns.
It talks about how much farmland
All
they
the
saved.
presentations are up there with historic, low-income housing, open space, we did this, we did that.
I was just thinking, if you had a meeting or something like that, one more meeting or something like that, that you bring in somebody from those towns to say, this is what we did.
That's great, but
I think we
the
can tell
people
them.
we wanna reach, the
Yeah.
people that
Right.
are gonna vote for this,
You're not gonna
and,
get that
and I
meeting.
think our stumbling block is gonna be the people that
Yeah, okay,
see this as a tax.
all right.
This was a one-page thing by the town of Shrewsbury that I thought was, I can briefly go over it. This is, what is the Community Preservation Act? What is being proposed? How can CPA benefit Shrewsbury? They get into outdoor recreation, open space, historic preservation, and affordable housing, so.
Maybe we should take that and.
When did they pass that?
I
I
forget.
can look on the,
Shrewsbury was 08.
I think we gotta keep it simple.
Right.
One,
This is-
one page thing is,
Something like that, should we have it?
Absolutely.
we could,
This is what could happen?
And that's what we gotta develop.
Yeah.
Right. But you gotta keep it simple, right? We talk about putting all that stuff, Bob's printed off that much paper, right? The only person that's
I've got a
gonna,
new printer, so I had to use it.
the only person that's physically gonna read that much information is you, right? I'm gonna fall asleep about 3 pages into it, right?
I'll get distracted about 2 pages in.
So in turn, what I'm saying is, we can have all this information there, but then we've gotta have things like the Shrewsbury thing there of bullet points that are only pages, that will eventually print out and hand out. We're probably not in a financial position, right? We talked about mass mailers, and I didn't wanna squash Natalie publicly, but we can't afford to do a mass mailing, right? Maybe it was, Leah then, but one of you on my left-hand side said that. But in turn,
About
Somebody out there
$1,000.
said that, yeah.
oh, or more. By the time you print it and send out, 58-cent stamps now, so it adds up. I mean, the fire department used to do postcards all the time, to get a fire truck or an ambulance passed.
Yep.
Right, which we can do, and we can probably get money from somebody, to physically do that. That's not the big thing to do, but
I
it's,
wonder if there's a CPA grant to do that.
but it's all about education, right? The majority of the people are gonna do
There
it, or make,
is.
the people that don't have the internet, right, or Facebook.
Who the hell
or
doesn't have the
whatever.
internet? There can't be people that
My
still.
father, at
Really?
his house.
I mean, could you
I
leave stuff,
hate going to the computer.
could you leave stuff like this in stores, like pamphlets and, Shrewsbury was 2020. I just read the date down the bottom.
So with I had a question on the actual voting time, so you can't put anything in the booth, you can't can we be outside the building and?
Nope.
You can't even hand somebody
Oh,
something?
on
You can be on the common, but you have to be,
For voting? For voting or town meeting?
Well, just for information, I'm
voting.
just saying, so what happens, there's gonna be people that show up, say, they're gonna look,
Town
what the hell
meeting,
is
you
this?
can
They have
pass
a-
out.
We gotta educate them long before they get there.
I believe you need to be at least 500 feet from the opening of any election
And no
building.
one stopped, they're driving by in cars, they're like, you
Yeah,
know.
it's like when they sit there with all the
Yeah,
signs, yeah. Because
But
otherwise it's
unfortunate. There's
electioneering.
Educate, there's gonna be people walking in to vote, and they're not gonna, they're gonna, what the hell is this?
But it's gonna be just like question 3 was 20 years ago, probably 40 years ago now, for Save the Farm, the Save the Family Farm, right? We could be handing stickers out at the entrances, if they're 500 feet or away, please vote yes on this. Could be as simple as that, right? They're not gonna read a flyer by the time they drive down here, very few people are gonna do that, right? We can have these business cards made up, or stickers, please vote yes, or please support
Yeah, I
this.
like
We
that.
can make political signs, and have political signs out about this. I think we gotta be careful about, we can't say save the farm, vote yes on Preservation Act. We gotta come up with a tagline that, somebody will come up with a tagline of, hey, invest in your 401k through CPA, or something like that, right? A brief tagline, make up, $300 worth of lawn signs and put them on a dozen lawns in the center of town.
It's too bad we couldn't put them on a hay wagon.
You and your hay wagons. Can we put it on the fire station property? We're gonna do that for the chicken barbecue on the hay wagon.
If I remember correctly, at one of the town meetings a couple of years ago, when they were doing the dispensary down here, there was someone handing out,
Outside, they can do that.
it's in the bill, right in
Is
the
that still
entrance.
going in?
What are they doing?
Yeah, I allowed it. They asked me. Moderator controls town meeting.
That was town meeting, but I'm talking about voting, actual vote booth.
Oh, okay, so at a town meeting, we could hand
Yeah.
this stuff out, okay.
But not at the voting booth, you can't, especially at a presidential election. That'd be
They don't enforce it very well, but.
no, but if it ever,
I genuinely think you're gonna be surprised how this snowball is gonna continue to roll in the right
Yeah,
direction.
no, it's,
And it's only gonna
these
go,
people were
gain
positive, you know, so.
momentum.
I actually might, if we can figure out what we wanna put on them. My sister-in-law has one of the cricket machines that
Like, she might be able to like mass print stickers. And I can just get, I mean, you can get blank stickers on Amazon for like $5.
Right.
Like hundreds of them, hundreds.
I mean, it's not, yes, that may be an option, but we may find it's easier to go to one of these political signs and can make it up cheaper and easier
It's
too.
like, I don't even think you can have a sticker on your person when you go into the voting booth either.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that was an issue with the Trump hats walking into the ballots, yeah,
I thought that was just with people that were working the ballots.
not sure.
I mean, I know where there's a tractor trailer we could paint that says something.
The other side is still blank.
What a group.
So again, I think it's important that we have an agreement in numbers between the assessor, what CPA does, and what we're presenting.
We wanna make sure all the numbers
Because
are accurate.
You know, that could come back and bite you.
Yes.
I did, she gave me this the other day with there's 4,340 parcels on residential. There's a few commercial, but the bulk of this is gonna come from the residential.
440 by parcels, just land, or what is?
Well, there's,
Individual parcels.
So how
let me
is
put it
it,
this way, parcels that will be eligible for definitely for the 100,000 exemption.
Okay.
So there's a total of 4,487, but when you take out, I took out some of the chapter land, I took out, I think, no, I left the I left out the commercial and the industrial, which is not a lot, but residential parcels, multifamily, condo, and single family, 4,340 parcels, divide that into the total valuation, that's where you come up with that 427.
Oh, okay.
So at the average tax bill for FY '24 is 4853.
Does that account for the parcels that are worth under 100,000?
No. No, because those are residential, they'll all be over 100. I don't think you'll.
Okay, just the, all right.
Right.
Glenn, can you repeat that? The 4850, that was $4,853? Was that?
Yeah, 4853.
Okay, so it's essentially this number here.
Again, these only are, some of these here where there's 1, 2 parcels. Chapter 61, there's 31 parcel count, 71 on,
we still rolling on the, could be?
Well, I see green there, I see green here, I don't see green now, oh, no, just.
one other thing that came out with this I thought about was, for example, all the
green.
builders that
Should I go
have
ask Peter, did we?
land subdivided into
close the meeting?
parcels,
That's what my husband was saying. He was worried
all
about
right?
that.
Okay.
Most of them are 60,000 feet, so their value is under 100,000. So, you
Which is
know,
unfortunate.
if the developers come and say, hey, you know, this is more money that we could pay, no, they're gonna be exempted for the lots that they've already approved, because they'll be under 100,000. Now, the question that kind of came up here tonight was, does someone have to fund that exemption?
That's what that's important.
That,
And I didn't see that, and I don't think Leah saw that either.
I
but
I can't find it either, but
It's something we gotta check, definitely check.
definitely.
Peter doesn't have a tendency to be wrong, so I wanna,
He's wrong.
I hope he's wrong, but I wanna make sure.
Cameras are rolling.
Because this is CPA specific, it's not like an exemption to the tax basis, this is a surcharge on what's already there. So this exemption doesn't apply to our tax base, it applies to what the surcharge is, which is money above and
Right,
beyond.
it's for calculating the surcharge.
Right, so I think he's wrong. Respectively.
Well, we're gonna find that out.
Okay,
But the
good.
way that looks to me is that, you know, somebody's got 120 lots, already subdivided, and they're paying, they're not gonna be affected by that surcharge.
Okay.
And obviously, you know, a lower valued house, 50% of their house is gonna be exempted.
Is there any way, Glenn, to get I don't know if, Amy has access to that type of data, but what the income levels are.
Income levels,
Age and income.
I mean, it's really, I just don't know where to look for it, it's definitely out there.
In our town, in the database here?
It should be, because she has exemptions for low income, so somewhere there that,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I'm sure she has access to
No,
that.
Bob, does your spreadsheet probably don't, can you drill down to, can we say, hey, at 3%, like in the, for presentation wise in town meeting, we say, hey, if we do this at 3% with, lay out the, hey, here's our 100,000 off the top. If we all go with this, hey, we're gonna generate $300,000 a year for this
We're gonna
fund.
generate
Yeah.
416,421.
Yeah, with
That's
Glenn-
that's a
with
3%.
Glenn's numbers, we could have a formula that
Yeah.
incorporated that.
So that is
I
pretty.
mean, I think Amy will be willing to take these categories and we can figure out which ones will be exempt. So I mean, it's not gonna change a lot. Personal property tax is not affected by this at all, but that's $40,000. Excuse me, $40 million is personal property, which we collect taxes for, but that won't be affected by CPA, I don't believe. It's only on real property, right? So.
Then he can go home.
We're thinking about Peter. Is that I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Ever increasing bills.
Aye.
Aye.